Close. So this should be, so the first unit was the intro and like the organic chemistry stuff, like lipid, carb, protein, nucleic acid, we were doing that. Then we had cells, then we had energy, then we had DNA and protein synthesis. So now we're on number 5, and it's called GDR. So somewhere in your notebook, wherever you're keeping track of stuff, we're going to write it out because we started the unit in your packet. Growth, development, and reproduction. All right, so what we're going to do is put the note dates from last week. Just make a note that they're in your packet. Okay, so what we're going to start with today is the cell's life. Okay, so your cells that you make, if y'all are growing and developing and we all heal, okay, so if you have this big scab that, you know, you've fallen, or Caleb in first period, he had fallen and he has this nasty scab and it was all oozy today, and he was like, oh, look at this, and said, okay, well, that's mitosis. The cells around where you've left some of them on the pavement or wherever they were, the cells, you left your cells and your DNA behind. So how in the world do you replace those? Sometimes you can do enough damage where you actually have a scar, you know? But other than that, we do this all the time. We heal. But do we grow forever? We don't. We're not like a tree out here. These trees, they continue to grow and continue to grow. But for us, a gene cuts off when it's time for you to stop growing. For all the females in here, you have about 2 years roughly from the time you started your period. Okay? From that first day of menses, when you started, and you continue to have a period after that, then you have about 2 years and you'll stop growing. For guys in here, the gene cuts on a little bit later. So that's why an 8th grade girl looks a lot of times a lot different than an 8th grade boy even. And it's because we started maturing and growing earlier. Sometimes they're a head taller than a lot of the guys even. So girls stop earlier, but guys can also continue even after high school. So you may stop growing, you know, at 18, 19, 20 years old. But for girls, usually you're about done. That's part of this. But what's kind of sad is not all of your cells you can replace. Do you know what 2 kinds of cells that people will say, well, once you kill them, once they're gone forever?
Brain cells.
Brain cells, one of them. And there's another one you might, and nerve, all right, so brain/nerve, good. And there's another one that you might not know. It's a good guess, though. And that's part of those are nerves. It's your muscle cells. So what we're going to find is we're going to draw this kind of a pie chart. Y'all know what a pie graph looks like. So we're going to draw this little pie chart, and it shows kind of the life cycle of a cell. And that's what the little amoeba sisters is going to introduce. But I want to make sure everybody understands what this word means. What does life cycle mean? Y'all learned about life cycle starting in kindergarten. You learned about the life cycle of a frog or a life cycle of a butterfly. What does a life cycle mean? What do you start off with? Okay, so you have a cell. Sometimes it starts off like as a fertilized egg. And then for us, you're born, right? You have this birth. And then what happens from the time you were born? What do you start doing? Grow. And you develop, right? You're always healing along the way. So your life cycle is basically starts with a birth. And then you grow and develop. And at some point you stop doing that. And then you may choose to reproduce, you may not. And we're going to find, in this unit, we talk about reproduction. And it's not kinky, it's not crude, it's something that's part of nature. It is real, it is how we make babies, and it's how we continue our species. But we know that as humans, sometimes people are like, yeah, I don't really want to have kids. Well, we're different in that way as a species. All the other species on the planet, that is their innate desire. That's their do, because they want to be able to pass their genes on. Now, some organisms aren't given the opportunity.
I have a question.
Okay, so hold on one sec. So if I am a white-tailed deer in Davidson County, and let's say that I'm a male who has all these antlers, have all these points, and I'm strutting around Davidson County, and I'm leaving scrapes behind on trees, I'm snorting, I'm trying to get the attention of all these females. But then there's another little guy over here that has like a unicorn little antler. And it's like one little antler. Who do you think the female's probably going to choose to father her kids?
The big antlers.
Right. So when we say that not everybody has an opportunity to pass on their genes and reproduce, it's true. Part of it's courtship. So there's a mutation in deer where it only produces like one little horn. And there's another one called a cow horn, and it just kind of goes out, and they don't have the points. So if you don't really have the better genes, a lot of times in nature you won't be able to pass on those to your kids. So we say reproduction, that's the hope of everybody. And then you die. That's it. So, part of nature is not only birth, there's death. And so that's just part of nature. Okay. So that's true for your cells too. You have cells every day you have to replace because they've died. There's cells that you have that are killed and that are dead that you can't replace anymore. So we're going to look at that. All right. So beneath there, we're going to draw a pretty good size pie graph. So you need probably about a third of the paper, and you're going to have to draw it big enough that you can write inside of it and draw on the outside. Okay. So what I'm going to do is kind of scroll down, and I'm going to make it, but I have to leave enough space around it to draw pictures. So make sure that you don't snug it up to the bottom. All right. So we're going to draw a circle. And we're going to divide it into 4 pieces of the pie, but they're not all even, okay? So the bottom one is kind of skinny compared to the other ones, okay? And this is where the colors are going to come in. Each color, we're going to do each piece of the pie, each part of the life cycle in a different color, okay? All right, so we're going to start with, we'll draw a cell. And how many chromosomes are in one of your body cells? 46. So let's put 46. Is that a haploid or a diploid number?
A diploid.
Right, very good. So we're going to put 2 in for diploid. Okay, so full set diploid. And think about it, you got 2 parents, so you had 2 chromosomes for each pair. So that's a total set. All right, so this is a skin cell. So this is a human skin cell. Okay, so this is happening to everybody in here. It's happening on the inside of your cheek, on your gums. It's happening with you.
Bless you.
On your arms, everywhere you have skin.
Bless you.
Okay, so this cell is entering its life cycle. It was just born, okay? So take the first color. It doesn't matter which colors you use. Just take one. And we're going to just highlight the outside of it. We won't color the inside because we're going to write on the inside.
So you want to
okay, so just kind of highlight around it. And we're going to call this first step G1.
Oh, let me make it big.
Yeah, make it big enough to write inside. How many seconds? Okay.
I say it's more real.
All right. So G, think of growth. So this cell, in order for it to divide, you've got this new little brand new cell, and within, I don't know, 24 hours, 48 hours, it's going to actually go through the cycle. It might last a little bit longer, but for a bacterium, if this was a bacterial cell, this would be 20 minutes, y'all. They do their whole life cycle in 20 minutes.
Bless you.
All right, so the first thing that's going to happen is growth. The cell's going to increase its size. So just like blowing up air into a balloon, it would increase its size. In order to do that, it has to double its organelles. So let's put organelles double. So if it had 20 mitochondria, it's now got 40. If it has 2 rough yards, it's got 4. So all the organelles inside, the ribosomes, the nucleolus is pumping out tons of extra ribosomes. Okay, so organelles double and protein synthesis occurs. So y'all know what that is. Occurs. So that is where we've got DNA converts to RNA, which RNA makes the protein. Okay, so y'all know what that means. So you're pumping out all these extra proteins. Well, this cell now has more guts because it's got extra stuff in it. So we're going to draw this cell bigger over here. Okay, so once you've got that, think about how large you drew it. Wow. So it's a pretty big cell. But did we say we did anything to the DNA? No. So the DNA stays the same. So 46 chromosomes. We didn't do anything extra to that so far. Still a big, giant, large cell, same DNA. Okay? All right, take another color. Again, it does not matter what color. So we're going to highlight this next piece of the pie. And we're calling it S. Okay. All right, one important thing happens. DNA doubles. So what's the process called when DNA doubles?
Replication.
Replication. So it's called synthesis or DNA replication. All right, so we said before, when does it happen? Before a cell can divide. So before cell division. So did it say anything else? Did the cell grow any bigger? Did it get more stuff? No, just extra DNA. All right, so we're going to show this same cell, but it has to be the same size. So try to draw the exact same cell, but the nucleus has changed. So after this, oops, black. All right, so how many chromosomes would be in there? Instead of 46, if DNA replicated, how many, Javion? What's 46 times 2?
92.
So instead of 2N, how many would it be? 4N. So at this point, we've got a cell that has extra organelles. We have extra cytoplasm. We've got extra DNA. It's almost ready to divide. It just has to get a little bit bigger. Yeah, that's a 92. Okay, so take another color and let's highlight this piece. And we're going to call it G2. So this one is going to just expand a little bit larger to the point where if it gets any bigger, it'll pop. So it's gotten so large that it's going to have to go on to divide. So this is more growth, preparing for division. Okay. So we're going to draw looks like a monster. It is so big that it's ready to split, and we're going to get two of the exact same thing that we started with, hopefully. So this is going to be our big, giant one here. Whoa. All right, how many chromosomes did it have?
92.
92. 2 in or 4 in?
4.
Good. So this thing is ready to split in half. So we have one piece left. And that last one is M. So if you have another color.
It's that.
All right, so this is M. Janai, you with me?
Yeah.
All right, so M is the mitotic phase, and we don't have enough room to label that, so we'll come out here and do that. But, so M. Come on. Afraid to touch it is what I do. Just cut off.
Ooh, we about to watch this story.
All right, we'll stop.
Oh, I seen this commercial.
You did. Okay. I'll come back. I'll pull it back up.
It's about time to go.
No, we're good.
Yo.
We got female.
Plus, they're on this medication.
Bro, I want to do my next class.
Today's topic is the cell cycle and mitosis. But before we get into the cell cycle and mitosis, we want to make sure and talk about why these words are important and how they relate to real life. So if I say the word cancer, this word probably means something to you. Either you know somebody who's been diagnosed with cancer, or you've heard about it on the news. There's many different types of cancers. But one thing they all have in common is that they are caused by uncontrolled cell growth. That means somebody's own cells grow out of control. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't other contributing factors. For example, for some cancers, having genetic links, meaning it runs in the family, can make somebody more likely to develop it. Or having excessive exposure to UV light for some cancers. Those are risk factors that can increase your risk, but the major cause of cancer is uncontrolled cell growth. That also means it's something that is not contagious, and it's something that anyone can develop. You have to realize that all the cells in your body are very, very busy, and they're either in one of two different phases. They are either in a phase called interphase, and during interphase, they are just growing, they're replicating their DNA, they're doing their cell functions, or they are in mitosis. Mitosis is a fancy word that means that they are dividing, they are making new cells. Well, if you think about the cell cycle, whether they're in interphase or mitosis, it's kind of like a pie graph. They're spending about 90% of their time in interphase. Most of the time, cells are not dividing. Most of the time, cells are in interphase. They're growing, they're doing their daily cell functions, and they're replicating their DNA. Most of the time, cells are not dividing. Now, depending on what kind of cell, it might do mitosis more or less often. For example, your hair follicle cells, they do mitosis frequently, which is why your hair can grow up to ½ an inch every month. But other cells, like, for example, your brain cells, your neurons, some of them actually do not perform mitosis, which is why if you have some type of major injury to the spinal cord or to the brain, sometimes those do not heal very well because those cells, they do not replicate. So mitosis is very important in order to generate new cells, which can help with growth. And also, if you damage your cells, if you're walking down the street and you have some kind of accident and you skin your knee, well, you're going to need to repair those damaged cells, you're going to need to be able to do mitosis to make those new cells. The thing is, you don't want your cells to always be doing mitosis, because if they're always doing mitosis, then they're always dividing, and then they're not carrying out their actual function. And that's a problem. That's where checkpoints come in handy. See, along the cell cycle, there are checkpoints to check that the cell is growing correctly and replicating its DNA correctly and doing everything it's supposed to do correctly before it divides. And what happens if the cell fails its checkpoint? The cell does something called apoptosis, which basically means the cell destroys itself. It self-destructs. This might seem kind of harsh, but actually it's really important because it ensures that you don't have these cells that are messed up continue on and divide. You don't want damaged cells to continue on and divide because they might not do what they're supposed to. They might start to grow out of control. They might not be regulated correctly. That's where cancer cells come in. See, cancer cells, as we had said, are your body's own cells that are growing out of control. So they're not following the rules of these checkpoints. They're flying past the checkpoints, going through the cell cycle, and frequently doing mitosis, which means that they're dividing very, very often. And so by doing that, they can grow into these things called tumors, which are really a mass of cancer cells. So we're not really sure what causes them to escape these checkpoints.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
The tumors that be on fishes, are they the same thing? Oh, because my cousin had this goldfish, and it's a big old tumor on the end of his tail.
Mm-hmm. And we don't know what causes it. So if it could be a non-cancerous tumor, or it can be a cancerous tumor.
And he said it costs like a couple thousand to get it fixed.
Oh yeah, it's not worth it. I hate to say it.
He said he's gonna do it though.
I don't know. I know.
He had it for 3 years though.
I don't think I would do it unless I had. I guess I don't know. But you know, he has the money to do it.
There's a lot of risk factors that can that a person can have that can increase their risk of this happening. But when these cells get past these checkpoints and grow out of control, they become a problem because many times they can travel through the bloodstream. They start growing out of control. The body can't identify them and destroy them with the immune system. So this becomes an issue.
Okay, so when we go back to your diagram, let me pull it back up. I'm just going to sketch out the bottom part. The M stands for mitosis, and mitosis is just cell division. So it's how you make more body cells. And the thing is, the problem with cancer, or we can't even just say it's just cancer, it's making a tumor or growth. It doesn't have to be a cancerous growth. It could be a benign tumor, one that really isn't a cancerous growth. So the tumor that's on his fish may not be cancer. It might just be like a growth or a cyst or something. So, but either way, y'all saw there was a division at each color. Each of those is a checkpoint. And as long as all the requirements are met at the checkpoint, the cell's allowed to pass through. So it's like you have a pass and like, okay, I've done everything I need to do. Okay, let me check you off. You can advance to the next one. So that's how it's supposed to be. I don't know why it's been so slow. Yes?
Can you see a human tumor?
A human tumor? Well, you can see the one on that diagram, the guy on his neck. Absolutely.
Like it sticks out. Like it doesn't show like the fish's was like.
Yeah, that one, the picture just right there of the guy's neck, he had a huge tumor.
Oh, I want to pay.
So at the bottom, let's look at this last little piece right quick before the bell rings. So whatever color you colored it, this last little part is M. And I was in the process of writing down that that's called mitotic phase. This equals cell division, okay? So that's when the cell actually divides. So let's add that to that part. And then in this part, we're going to separate it into a really skinny piece and a bigger piece. So if you take this like this, okay, this first part is called mitosis. That's the cell division. But the thing is with mitosis, it only gets the cell. So we have this big giant cell, 4N, 92 chromosomes. It's going to go through, and we're going to draw it looking like it's dividing. Looks kind of like a figure 8. So how many chromosomes would be in each of those nuclei if we had 92? What's half of 92 again?
46.
46. So we're going to put 46 and 46. The thing is, though, it hasn't divided all the way yet. So this little last step is called cytokinesis. I'll label it right here so that way you can see it. That is where the cytoplasm splits in half. So this is the cytoplasm splits into two cells. So all the organelles are divided fairly evenly. The nucleus is already divided, and then we should get two cells that look just like the first that we drew over here. So our first one was 46, and when this divides, we should get two 46s again. So the product is always two of what we started off with. Okay. So let me make sure everybody's got that. We got that little bit. So where are the checkpoints? What are the end of each? So the very first checkpoint would be at the end of which phase? What was the very first phase that we colored? G1. Okay, so yeah, so there's a checkpoint right here. There's a checkpoint, okay? Where would there be another checkpoint? What's the next phase? S. So at the end of S. So here, that would be another checkpoint. Okay, where is there another checkpoint? One last one. So right here would be another one. So as long as all the requirements are met, this cell can go on to divide. Okay. Let's see what's on this. All right, perfect. All right, so let's kick out the two cells they said nerve cells don't go through this, right? So here's the deal. If you're stopped growing, if you guys know that you're not growing anymore, you're not going to make any more brain cells. You're done. Your brain is its size. If something happens to your brain or any part of it, you can't repair it. Your nerves, the same thing. So that's why if someone's paralyzed, they can't fix it. It's just going to always be that way.
Wow.
So, and it's because of this reason. So let's say that this cell was a nerve cell or a brain cell.
Mm-hmm.
Then after it's made and you're done growing, they get kicked out in something called G0.
Some people do fight you paralyzed, like they less paralyzed. Some people.
And some of the nerves can kind of, right. It
They
depends
get
on.
stronger, like, how do they get stronger?
It depends on, well, the muscles, if they have some nerve, if it's not complete nerve damage and like totally cut off, then they may be able to stimulate some of those muscles and really work through it, some of that and get some of that back. But if it's a complete severed where the spinal cord
Like, for
can't.
example, you know, the girl, I think the sister and brother that's paralyzed here. Well, I forgot
They're
the
not
name.
paralyzed.
You don't.
What's wrong? Yes, they are.
No, you're not.
They got a little disorder.
Okay, they don't get paralyzed.
They
They walk.
ain't got no leg. Oh, yeah.
School.
Yeah.
It's all tough.
Well, there's just different degrees. It just depends on how bad damage is or how like the connection, if there's a large break in that connection, then the brain can't get the message to make that body part work. So that's part of that problem. But here, so they get kicked out and they never ever go through this again. So all your brain cells and your nerve cells, if you're stopped growing, your muscle cells, they're stuck. So usually this is the question where people will ask, well, I don't understand that, because if I lift weights, am I not making more muscle cells? No, the only thing you're doing is inflating them like a balloon. So let's say you don't work out at all. You have little muscle mass. They're like this. But if you work out and you lift, all you're doing is inflating and making those muscles stronger. But what happens as soon as you stop lifting? What do you notice to your muscles? They just go, whoop. Right. So that's why it's so important. Like if you play, especially like football, one of those, or even wrestling, where you your strength is so important. if you stop lifting all of a sudden, you go back really far and you have to then build way back up and it takes so much time. So that's why maintenance in the weight room is really important. It also helps prevent injury. So, so that's how that goes. And then we'll add the cancer part to it on Wednesday. So at this point, we need to pause and make sure everybody knows